First of all, I would like to thank Professor Amit Prabhakar for inviting me to deliver a lecture over here. But I feel I am one of the odd man out over here because I do not work in the field of biomems. But even though Professor Prabhakar has invited me, and I gracefully thank him for this thing, for giving me the opportunity to present what we are doing at our lab at NIT Rourkela. So, this is the fag end of the day. I hope Professor Namit Prabhakar could provide you with some coffee, but due to this corona lockdown and the restrictions in the gathering, he might not be able to help you out with the coffee. But at least he can give you guys some coupon. So when you visit his place, he can provide some coffee to you, right? So so with this, I will start my presentation. So, as you see, uh, what we are doing, we are trying to understand the effect of caffeinated coffee on the cardiac physiology and cognition. Okay. So, I am Dr. Kunal Pal. I am professor in charge of medical electronics and instrumentation laboratory, and I am from Department of Biotechnology and Medical Engineering from the National Institute of Technology, Rourkela. Right. So, introduction. We all have coffee as soon as we get up from the bed, and if you want to have some hangout, we go to a coffee shop with our friends and do a lot of chit chats and relax, and we get ourselves relaxed, right? But if you look in each cup of coffee what we take, we have approximately 28.5 mg of caffeine. Okay, and caffeine, it is a neurostimulant, right? So it will have neurological effect. Okay, even though when we take coffee we have a temporary boost in energy, mood and alertness. So the question arises, is coffee safe for us? Okay, various literature they have suggested that caffeine, it impacts many other body organs like liver, skin, stomach, kidney, etc. Right? One of the mostly studied, uh, not one, two of the mostly studied this physiological activities upon having the caffeinated beverages or food products are the analysis of the cardiac system and the cognitive behavior. Okay. However, if you look into the studies, these studies are basically observational or just clinical. We could find only there are very few studies which are systematically doing signal processing based analysis of the biological signals. So that gives us the motivation to work in this field. So if you look into this structure, we have the nervous system. Now, if you divide the nervous system, it can be divided into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Now, this central nervous system, it can further be divided into brain and spinal cord, right? Now, brain is responsible for the cognition. Okay. We have discussed that coffee is a neurostimulant, right? So, our hypothesis was, does consumption of coffee affect the human cognitive performance, mental efficiency, and critical thinking? Many observational and the clinical report says yes, but there was no in-depth analysis. Okay. On the other hand, if you look into the peripheral nervous system, we have autonomic nervous system and sensoriosomatic nervous system. This autonomic nervous system, they have sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. I hope every one of you know about the yin yang theory or the physiology of the Chinese. What they say, if you need to have a balanced life, you need to have a balance between good and the evil. In our body, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, they play a major role in balancing the activities of our physiological system. Okay. So many researchers, they say that there are changes in the ANS activity after coffee consumption. That's fine, but how do you analyze? One of the best method to analyze the ANS activity is by understanding the changes in the cardiac physiology. Okay, so how that is done, we will be discussing later on. So from the literature, we found that there are mixed results on the effect of caffeinated coffee on heart physiology, and that makes those results debatable. And as we said, most of the things are just observational, so you do not have any concrete scientific evidence. So how do you go for that? Okay, so we try to find out whether there are any studies on the caffeinated beverages. We found that there are a number of studies where people have worked on caffeinated beverages also, but only few research has been focused on the caffeinated coffee. Further, we found that there was no study which employed artificial intelligence based classification and analysis to understand the physiological changes within the human body once the person takes the caffeinated beverages. So we designed a study. What is the study? We gave coffee to a group of people, and then we uh, analyzed the changes in the ANS and the cardiac physiology and the cognition. Okay. So for the ANS and the cardiac physiology, what we did is that we recorded ECG signals from two groups. First one is the group A, and the second one is the post consumption of coffee in group A, right? Group B and group A. So from the ECG signals, what we have got from here, we recorded for 5 minutes. We recorded the signals for 5 minutes. And from here, what we did was that we extracted the different HRV parameters. Okay. So how do you find out the HRV parameters? We have to find out the RR interval signals. Now, what are the RR interval signals? Just in brief, I will tell you. So suppose you are having an ECG signal like this, then the second one, it follows like this. Now the distance between these two R peaks, it is called RR interval. Okay. Now when you take the ECG, what will happen? You have a sequence of intervals between these RR peaks, right? So when you plot this signal, those interval signals, they are regarded as the RR interval, and these RR intervals plays an important role when we try to analyze the autonomic nervous system activity. Okay, why? Because our heart is being innervated with autonomic nervous system, which are sympathetic sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic nervous system, they would try to uh, increase the heart rate, whereas parasympathetic nervous system, they would try to reduce the heart rate, but they would increase the contraction energy of the heart muscles so that you can have higher amount of energy. So one of the best method or best analysis over here is that when we are sitting, if you see, we are having a basal heart rate. Okay, but even then, this sympathetic and parasympathetic, they play an important role in maintaining the heart rate of our body. Suddenly, suppose I stand up and I start running. So what would happen? My heart rate would increase. So since it will increase, and after some time, if you see, if I stop and sit down, again slowly it will come down to the basal level. How this is happening? This is because both the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, they are trying to balance out the heart rate in my body. So if you see over here, there is a change in the dynamicity. Okay, so there is a change in the heart rate, and this balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system brings in the dynamicity of the autonomic nervous system. Most of us, we talk about that our heart rate should be 80, but if someone's heart rate is exactly at 80, that means he is a diseased person. No, so there is a term called dynamicity. Okay, so dynamicity means the sympathetic nervous system, it should try to increase the heart rate. Parasympathetic system, it should try to reduce the heart rate. And while balancing this, instead of having 80 beats per minute, you may have, in a shortest time scale, may have 82 or may have 78 beats per minute. So this is called dynamicity. So your R to R interval cannot be equal at all the time. If it is equal, then that means the person is a diseased person. So what we did is that we first extracted the RR interval signals from the ECG recordings, and then we extracted the features from these HRV parameters. Okay, then we went for the significant testing. We tried to find out whether some of the features which we have extracted, whether they are significantly different or not. And based on this, we try to evaluate the changes in the heart rate. Okay. In the second method, what we did is that we took the signal as it is. Okay. Then we extracted the statistical and entropy based parameters. Okay. Now after the extraction of this one, we try to find out an optimal feature set that can be used for the classification purpose. So when you try to figure out the features from any signals, you may get hundreds of features, but that does not mean that all the features will provide you the information what you need. Okay, say for example, as a person or as a student, you may have different qualities. You may be good in, say, cricket, you may be good in football, say you may be good in academics, say you may be good in programming. Okay, but if I ask you whether, or if I have to know whether you are a good programmer, I cannot judge you from the academic score what you have, right? So because of this type, this analogy, when we try to do any analysis, even though we have hundreds of features, we have to narrow down to the features where we can have important feature sets which can allow us to understand the physiology in a better manner. Okay. Now lastly, we went for the cognition. So what happens in the cognition? So we recorded the EEG signals of the group B and which was pre consumption of the coffee, and from the group A, which was from the post consumption of the coffee. So recording of the EEG data was carried out in the presence of cognitive task. In our case, it is the stimuli. We gave some photic stimuli. Okay, that I will discuss what are the photic stimuli we have used, right? So from there, we try to find out which EEG channels were activated. Okay, which EEG channels they were activated. Okay, say for example, we all know if some light is falling on our eye, our parieto-occipital lobes, they will be activated, right? But do you understand that frontal lobes can also be activated? Through our classical knowledge, we say no. When we are giving photic stimuli, frontal lobe cannot be activated because the parieto-occipital lobe is basically responsible for the detection of the photic signals. But there might be an interconnection. We don't know. We don't know whether there is any correlation, right? So you have to find out which channels are being activated. Okay, so we cannot go by our closed eye that this will be activated and that will not be activated. That would not be a scientific approach. So we should go for a scientific approach and we should find out which channels, EEG channels, they get activated. Okay, now from there we can do the tracking and we can find out what are the changes being brought down in the brain region. Okay, so first I will start with the study of the ANS physiology. What we did, we will see over here. So we all know ECG signal acquisition was initially done. What are ECG? ECG are basically graphical representation of the electrical activity of the heart. So what we did, we had 15 healthy volunteers who were leading a sedentary life. Okay. Apart from that, we consciously made an effort that no volunteers were smokers. Okay. They did not consume alcohol. Right? Why? Because smokers, alcohols, whenever you are taking these things, they also affect the central nervous system. So in one of our previous slides, we have seen that central nervous system is a part of the nervous system, right? Then from there, we are having the autonomic nervous system also. So if some drugs, they are affecting in some way the central nervous system, our hypothesis is that it would also affect the autonomic nervous system, because within our brain only we are having the autonomic nervous system. We cannot anatomically segregate central nervous system from the autonomic nervous system. That is not possible. That is not feasible. Okay. So we acquired the signals, ECG signals, from these volunteers. Initially we took the verbal consent from them, and then if we informed about the study to those volunteers verbally, and then we took a written consent from them, so that whether they are willing to participate in the study. If they did not agree to participate in the study, we let them go, because we cannot, because whenever we are talking about the signals, ECG signals or any other signals, many of us, you will find many researchers, they take ask some of our friends to come and they take the signal and they do publish the results. But that is not the right way, because one signal is his property. If you are taking my signal, you have to get the written consent from me, because my ECG signal is my property. Okay, and you are trying to do some analysis, you are trying to manipulate the signal and all these things. So you can only work on that signal only and only if I give you a written consent. Okay, so how did we take the signal? We took the signal in the lead 1 configuration. Okay, sorry. So we used vernier EKG sensors. We used disposable clamp electrodes to take the signal. The data was acquired using a low-cost data acquisition system, USB 4704 multifunction USB module. and the data was being acquired in LabVIEW. Okay. Now we acquired the signal at a sampling frequency of 1 kilohertz. Okay. So this is a typical ECG graph from one of the volunteers. Okay. So as I said, we will be getting some intervals between the RR peaks. So these time information, they were calculated, and if you see the RR interval, these points were plotted against time. Okay, then it becomes a RR interval signal. Okay, the basic definition of a signal for biomedical purpose is that any independent variable which changes with time, right? So we need to have some packet of energy. Over here, when we are talking about RR interval signals, we are basically talking about the packet of energies. What is the packet of energy in this case? In this case, the time difference between the two RR peaks. Okay. So once we have the RR intervals, usually we do smoothing to eliminate some of the noise, and we get an average signal. So this red peak, it is the average signal. So once we get that, we go for the heart rate variability analysis. Why heart rate? Because heart rate variability, it is a marker of the functioning of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic activity. Okay, and it has been extensively used to measure the ANS behavior within the human body. The literature suggests that the frequency domain parameters, they portray more clear picture about the ANS physiology as compared to the time domain parameters, right? And as I said, we collected 5 minutes of the ECG signals before and after the consumption of the caffeinated coffee. Then this 5-minute signal was used, ECG signal was used for the HRV analysis. From the HRV signal or the RR interval signals, we calculated 9 frequency domain parameters, because from the literature we can see the frequency domain parameters are more prominent parameters, and they provide a clear picture about the ANS physiology. So what are those? These are VLF, LF, HF, LF new, HF new, VLF percent, LF percent, HF percent, and LF by HF. So these parameters were calculated. So how they are calculated? When we plot the signal, RR interval signal with time, if you see, you will get some peaks like this. So this is your time and you have the amplitude. But when you go for the frequency domain analysis, you have to perform the Fourier transform, right? So you have to get from the time domain to the frequency domain, where your frequency axis is now, your x-axis is now the frequency axis, and your amplitude remains the same. So when you do this, if you see, if you normalize the frequency, you will get this kind of curve. Now if you look back across every VLF, I have given some frequency range. Now according to this frequency range, if you go over here, you just segment these ranges and you find out the power under those signal, and you get the different parameters, frequency domain parameters. Okay, so these are the equations for calculating these 9 feature components. Okay, now once we have calculated these features, what we do, we go for the statistical significance study. Okay, why you do? Because we want to know under what conditions, under the given conditions, whether there are any significant changes before and after the consumption of the coffee, right? So for this, what we do, we go for the non-parametric test where we use Wilcoxon signed rank test. Okay, where we use Wilcoxon signed rank test. Many people they do t-test for the initial analysis, but that is not recommended because the biological signals they are not uh, they are not normal signals. Okay, they do not follow the normal distribution. So for non-normal distribution, this non-parametric Wilcoxon signed rank test is usually carried out. So we try to find out the statistical significance using the Wilcoxon signed rank test. Further, we use two tree-based algorithms, classification and regression tree, CART, and random forest, to find out whether there are some important predictors, whether we can identify those. So after doing the analysis, this is the chart. If you see, through the Wilcoxon signed rank test, we calculated this p-value, LF new, we got it is less than 0.05. So yeah, we got one significant test, significant parameter, but none other parameters they were significant. Then from the CART, we found that VLF power is significant, right? And from the RF, random forest, we got that LF by HF ratio, it is significant. So from these analysis, I'm sorry. So from this analysis, we found that three parameters were important, and let's see what summary we deduced. The summary is LF new power showed that there is a reduction in sympathetic activity. Okay. We found VLF power, it was important, but we only studied the HRV using the short-term recordings. So as per the cardiological society, American Cardiological Society, the short-term recording, if you are doing short-term recording, we should not use VLF power for the conclusion of our results. So they should be avoided. So we said, okay, we will not take this. Next, the next was, there was a decrease in the LF by HF ratio. Okay. So a decrease in the LF by HF ratio suggests there is an increased parasympathetic system. Now this LF by HF ratio, it shows the dynamicity. It shows the dynamicity of the autonomic nervous system. If LF by HF ratio is nearly equal to 1, that means the person has totally lost the dynamicity of the autonomic nervous system and he is at a greater risk. So we do not want someone whose dynamicity is lost. Okay. Over here, if you see, there is an increased parasympathetic system. So it is increasing the parasympathetic activity of when we are drinking the coffee. So from this study, we can say that the caffeinated coffee alters the autonomic nervous system activity. Now from here, we deduce the hypothesis for the next study. So if there is any variation in the autonomic activity, there should be changes in the cardiac physiology. Why? Simply because our heart is being innervated with the what? With the autonomic nervous system. So if there is a parasympathetic system is increasing, its component is increasing, that means our heart is beating more strongly. That means the entropy of the signal during the parasympathetic dominance will be higher, and vice versa, right? So considering that, we started the analysis with the cardiac physiology. So over here, what was our hypothesis? We generated the hypothesis. We saw from the literature that the effect of coffee on ECG has been studied using morphological features, but they are giving mixed results. Some are saying, yeah, there are changes. Some are saying, no, there are no changes. Or someone's saying that there are changes, but what the first group said, that is reverse of that. Separately, we have found many researchers where they work on the statistical and entropy based features of the ECG signals. They have found that their results are quite efficient, right? So they can do better analysis. So we thought, okay, let's mix up these results and create our own hypothesis that statistical and entropy based features are efficient to detect the short term effect of coffee in ECG, right? So based on that, we evaluated our hypothesis. We took 5-second ECG segments from the 10-minute signal, okay, before and after coffee consumption. Then we extracted the statistical and the entropy based features from these signals. Then from here, we found out significant feature detection using the Wilcoxon sign rank test, and then we went for classification with the artificial intelligence based models, and over there we used recursive feature elimination, which helps in reducing the features while performing the classification process, okay. Then lastly we perform the performance evaluation, okay. From here, what is the hypothesis consequence? Significant changes in several statistical and entropy based features after coffee consumption were found, and that supports our hypothesis which we have generated over here. Now let's look into the result. So I have already discussed about these things, okay. Next I go to the feature extraction. So as I said, we have extracted 5-second ECG segments from the 10-minute ECG signals, and a subtotal of 1260 number of ECG signals were extracted, okay. And from here, from each trial of 5 seconds, we calculated 8 statistical parameters, okay. Apart from this, we also calculated 34 entropy based parameters, okay, which were derived from these entropies, okay. Now this is the overview of the features which we have extracted. So if you look, these green colored circles over here, we are having arithmetic mean, median, variance. So they are regarded as lower order statistical features. Then we have kurtosis and skewness. They are regarded as higher order statistical features, and the other features which are in yellow, log energy entropy, Shannon entropy, Renyi entropy, and Salis entropy, they are entropy based features. And when talking about this Renyi entropy and Salis entropy, we went for determining the entropies at different orders, okay. So that's how we got a large number of feature set from the signals. Now these are the significant feature selection results. So from here, these are the 20 features which we found that they were significant. What does this mean? In our previous case, we have seen that there is an autonomic nervous system, there is an imbalance in the autonomic nervous system, and when there is an imbalance in the autonomic nervous system, we hypothesized that they would also be they will also be showing their effect in the electrocardiophysiology, right? Now due to this reason or this analysis over here, what we have found, this also supports our result, our hypothesis that when we drink coffee, it is not only activating or creating an imbalance in the autonomic nervous system, but it is also creating some imbalance within our cardiovascular physiology, electrophysiology, cardiovascular electrophysiology. Okay. Now we wanted to see what is happening. So we plotted the percentage increase in the value of different significant features, and if you see, median is increasing, variance is increasing, standard deviation it is increasing. These three components are increasing multifold. Okay, so yeah, there is a change, and there is a significant change, right? So then we went for this classification, and at the same time we went for this optimal feature selection using this recursive feature engineering protocol. Okay, so we use the different classification models. So we use 5 different tree based ensemble classifiers, etc, cart, AdaBoost, GBT and RF. Okay, why ensemble classifier? Because they reduce the misclassification rate of a weak classifier. Okay, so these classifiers are expected to perform better than the other classifiers. So we thought, okay, let's take up the best of the classifiers and do the analysis. Okay, so here the main idea was to make a prediction of several classifiers, okay, on the original data, and then make a strong prediction by combining all the predictions. Okay, so when we did, due to the recursive feature engineering, what it said is that when we used different classifiers, it gave us different numbers. So number of features. So over here we see 9 number of features were used to get the optimal feature. In this case, 6 number of features were used to get the optimal feature, and likewise. So here we have tabulated what are those features. For etc, these were the features. For cart, these were the features. For ADB, these were the features. And for GBT, these were the features. And for RF, these were the features. Okay, in RF we used 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Okay, we used 8 number of features, and I will in the next slide I will tell you why I have highlighted this RF. If you look into the performance of these classifiers, what is happening? You see the maximum accuracy is in the RF classifier, and we are getting a pretty good classification accuracy. Okay, so any classification accuracy, when we are talking about the biological signals from a population, anything more than 60% is regarded as the good classification efficiency. So now you can see all of these classification accuracy, they were showing a very good accuracy. However, the RF, it showed the best accuracy. Okay, and these are all the other, there are other features. Now these features you can see they were all highest in RF. So we concluded that RF classifier was the best classifier to analyze the these changes in the electrocardiophysiology. So from here we can say statistical and entropy based features obtained from smaller segments of the ECG signals can efficiently be used to detect short term effect of coffee. Okay. So future prospect, we would like to analyze the different dosage of coffee and how it affects the cardiophysiology. We may use different caffeinated beverages and study how it changes the electrocardiophysiology of the heart. And this is over optimistic what do you call asking, that we are trying to find out whether if we give some drugs and alcohol, whether we can detect the which are affecting the cardio electrophysiology, and whether we can try to find out how much drug and all this thing can be uh, whether they can be detected or not. Okay. Now I come to the last part of my uh, lecture, understanding the effect of coffee on brain cognitive behavior. Okay. So when we study the cognition, steady state visual potential, in short, these are called SSVP signals. They are used and they are basically elicited in the parieto-occipital region. So we all know caffeine enhances the vigilance and visual attention. Okay. Till date, before we publish this our results, there were no studies which investigated the effect of caffeinated coffee on the SSVP response. Okay. So in this study, we try to see the effect of consumption of caffeinated coffee on the generation of the SSVP signals. So this is the overview. So we took 6 volunteers. We took the EEG prior to and post stimulus condition. Over here, the stimulus condition is the consumption of the coffee, and then in each of the cases, we provided 7 different photic stimuli of different frequencies. Okay. Why we went for different frequencies, I will tell you in the next slide. Then we did canonical correlation analysis to detect which are the activated channels, and from there, from these EEG signals, we basically later on found out different nonlinear features using the recurrence plot, or using the recurrence plot, using the recurrence quantification analysis, and then lastly we classified those. Okay. So this is the workflow. We acquired the signal, we did pre-processing, we detected the SSVP signal activation channels, we did the feature extraction from those channels, and then we went for feature reduction, and lastly we went for classification. Okay. So this is the setup. The person is wearing the head cap of the EEG, and the electrode placement was 1020 international standard. And we made sure that the scalp electrode impedance, it was less than 20 kilo ohms, and the sampling frequency for the acquisition of the signal was 256 hertz. So why 7 frequency stimuli? I told you, when you do the analysis of the EEG, there are several bands: delta, theta, alpha, low beta, beta, high beta, low gamma. Now we are having all these things, so many ranges. So to analyze this, we have to stimulate our brain in all the channels, and we have to see what is happening in each of the frequency bands, right? So this is the brain mapping. So from the brain map, if you see, this is a progressive brain mapping. Okay. And first one is for the non-caffeinated, and the second one is for the caffeinated EEG signals with 7 photic stimuli. And you can see 3 hertz, 5 hertz, 10 hertz, 15 hertz, and this way. And over time, how we are having, and we could see that from the analysis, visual analysis of these brain maps, we can see there are some changes. But over here, we are not able to find out what quantitatively what are the changes. So what we did, we saved the data in this format. Okay, the recorded data, EEG data of a single volunteer, they were stored in this format, and then after storing them, we did some pre-processing to remove the noises. Okay, and over here we use 6th order Butterworth filter, and we used a moving average filter of window length 40 to remove the signal. In this case, we are showing for the one channel, OZ channel of the volunteer. Okay. Then we went for the detection of the SSVP signals. We use CCA coefficients. Now over here, these green patches, they shows that these channels are activated, whereas the other channels are not activated. Similarly, over here also post coffee, sorry, these 8 channels were activated, 7 channels were activated. Over here, 8 channels were activated, and we found that there was some dubious thing, so we eliminated this P4 channel. Okay. Interestingly, when we went for the percentage change observed in the SSVP activity before and after stimulus, if you see the percentage change, if you look into this activity, there is not much activity. We couldn't find. But when we are looking at the changes, we were surprised that frontal area of the brain was getting activated. We have given photic stimuli. We are expecting, yeah, this parieto occipital lobe will be getting activated. But that was not the case. That was activated, in fact, sorry. But the percentage change in the activity was much, much higher in the frontal lobe. Okay. Then we try to find out in terms of frequency, at which frequency the maximum change happened. The maximum change happened at 30 hertz frequency. Okay. So then we went for the feature extraction and classification. So here we went for the recurrence quantification analysis. So we extracted these features, and from here we try to find out the significant features using CART, BT, random forest, and then we try to go for the classification using multi-layer perceptron neural network, MLPNN. Okay. So if you look over here, in this case we have taken only the activated channels. Okay. The 8 predominant SSVP predominant channels. Okay. So in this case, what we are finding is that P4 and O2 channels, if you look in this fashion, classification efficiency of 97, 97, 91, O2, 95, 95, 95. So in most of the frequencies, either P4 or O2 channels, they were getting activated. So this suggests there were in other channels also there was some activation, if you see, but they were only at some particular frequencies. Okay. Even in the PZ, we found there were 2 channels were activated, but mostly P4 and O2, these channels were activated at different frequencies. That means when we are drinking coffee, these 2 channels are showing statistically different activities, because they are changing, the coffee is changing the activity in these 2 channels significantly. Okay. So with this, we come to the conclusion: the consumption of coffee does not significantly affect the generation of the SSVP in the parieto occipital region. Interestingly, frontal lobe activity is significantly increased, and using our proposed method, we got better results as compared to the previously reported systems. Okay, or reports, right? Limitation: every study has their limitation, as Professor Amit Pravakar, he was telling in the previous to the previous speaker, that there are limitation and we all work with some limitations. So every study when we do, it should have some limitations. So our study is the limitation in our study was the smaller number of participants. So this may have hampered the validation, but we are trying to extend our study to a higher population. Okay. And also we have an EEG system which is only a 22-channel EEG system, so it would give us low spatiotemporal resolution. Okay. Then in future we would like to study the long-term effects and the dose-dependent studies of coffee on the brain SSVP response, and also effects of different stimuli like ERP, P300 and hybrid system. We would also like to understand those things. Okay. So to conclude with, the studies were focused on tracking the changes in human electrical physiology of the heart and cognition after the ingestion of caffeinated coffee. The results infers that there is alteration in the ANS activity, cardiac physiology, as well as the brain cognitive activities after having this delectable beverage. Okay. However, further validation of the study will be extended with a larger population size. So this is the publication which we have recently published based on this study. Then these are some of the references which we have followed. We have collaborators from India, different institutes. They are working with us. Uh, okay, and we are also having some foreign collaboration where people from different domains they are interested to work with us, and we have been funded generously by both Government of India and Government of Odisha for different activities. Okay, and I would like to thank you with a note that all teachers thrive on the success of their students. A student is if a teacher is known by their students. If the student succeeds, that means the teacher has also succeeded. With this, I would conclude my talk.